How you doing? Mark with Work-A-Day Custom Gunleather. This is the sloop model. Most of my models have an open top on them. They hold in with friction. They're for concealed carry and deployment when you need them. Okay, we're going to talk to you today a little bit about holsters, gun gear, gun leather, and different ways of carrying. What I do is, at Work-A-Day Custom Gunleather, is I focus on functional gear, in my case leather gear, for working professionals, conscientious citizens, and people that carry their guns every day on a regular basis. Whenever you talk about gun gear, gun leather, or carry gear, everyday carry gear, basically you're brought down to two choices, the Kydex or leather. Both are great choices depending on what you're going to use those for. They each have their pros and cons. Kydex is very lightweight, it's very durable, it's waterproof, and for certain applications it's really the best choice. Tactical gear, you're not going to see Navy SEALs carrying leather. It gets wet, it retains moisture in extreme conditions. It wears difficult in things like sand, dirt, things like that. But in other cases, for people that carry on a regular basis, they are carrying for work, they're carrying it every day as they go about their daily lives. I prefer leather. I think it's more comfortable, I think it's more attractive, and I think it suits the needs of the typical citizen or a working professional on a regular basis. Whenever you talk about your carry gear, your everyday carry, your EDC, which is a term I try to stay away from, it's kind of like talking about your clothes and your EDC. When I make leather gear for somebody, I expect that they're going to carry that every day. If you wear your pants for a couple days, you're probably going to leave it on and then just take your gun off and then put that on. That's just part of your regular wear. If you're going to keep the belt on, you're going to keep the holster on, your mag pouches and everything else is going to be on. As I go through my different, the stuff I have here with me today, I don't have a lot of stock. Some of this is used that somebody else has worn on a regular basis. Some of that is stuff that maybe I do a lot of charitable work where I donate things to different drawings, different raffles. So I make those up, I have those in stock, but as far as if somebody calls up and says, hey, do you have such and such a holster for a 1911? I probably don't, but I'll make one for you. So that's how I operate, that's how a lot of leather manufacturers, guys that make leather, that's how they operate. So whenever you start to talk about what you're going to wear on a regular basis, when you are carrying on a regular basis, on a daily basis, couple things you need to take into consideration. The first and foremost is you're going to talk about a belt. The belt really is the foundation. The belt is what everything else is attached to. The belt is what keeps everything where it belongs, and it's going to be the thing that makes it more comfortable if you have the right belt. If you have the wrong belt, you're going to notice it on a regular basis throughout the day. You kind of constantly be adjusting. As you get more comfortable, you'll find that you stop checking your gun. At times you have to think, do I still have it with me? Yeah, I have my gun, but it's not something that's at the top of your mind all the time. One of the things you look for when you get a belt. This is the belt that I wear every day. So if I adjust my pants while I'm talking to you, it's because I've taken this off to show you. Common feature that I put on most or all of my belts, depending on if there's some other consideration. I use brass keepers. A lot of guys use leather keepers. Those are fine. But one of the things you look for is when you get a belt is that when you pick it up, you should not be able to fold that in half top to bottom. If you can fold that in half top to bottom, that's going to move. It's going to adjust when you put a holster on it or when you move around. So you should not be able to fold that in half. If you go to just a department store, pick up a typical belt off the rack there, get a $40 belt and you fold it right in half, that's not a gun belt. That's a trouser belt. A couple other things I do is I put brass keepers on. I put two keepers on. The reason I put two keepers on, you're going to put your belt loop between those. that's going to keep everything indexed. It's going to keep everything in place so that when you reach for your gun or a magazine or whatever else you have on, it's going to be where you expect it to be. Okay, so that keeps the belt from turning within your belt loops. They're positive, they last longer. You can see these have some burnishing on them because I wear it every day. Another thing you're going to look for, most of the belts I do have a roller buckle. That will reduce some of the wear and tear. This belt here, which I made for my son, he only wore a couple times, is essentially a new belt. I didn't put a roller buckle on, I took one of his old buckles, put that on, but I still have the two keepers here. And again, this belt is very stiff. When you get a new belt, you should be able to turn that into a loop and hold that out straight, and it's going to stay straight. Okay, almost like a tambourine. That's going to be nice and sturdy. This one that I've worn for about 2 years now sags a little bit, but it's still going to hold out straight. It doesn't flop straight down when you hold that out. Another thing that you'll find is that, and you probably find with your own belts, as you wear them, they put a bend in it. Some guys will actually pre-bend the belts before you get them. I don't. My belts are straight when you get them. It's kind of like when you buy shoes. When you buy shoes, the insoles are flat. But after you wear them a while, they fit your feet and only your feet. So this one's still pretty new. And I want to keep it that way and let you bend the belt as you wear it on the loop that you put it on and the way that it forms to your body. That happens with heat, that happens with moisture, that happens because you're wearing it and it's going to be your belt after a while. And it just becomes more comfortable when you do that. Another thing that you're going to look for, whether you're getting leather, whether you're getting Kydex, you want a nice stiff belt. As we said before, one of the ways that you get that, both in leather and web gear, is the more stitching you see on here, the stiffer that's going to be. That's more points of contact throughout the length of that belt. I typically double stitch it. So instead of having just one line going up both sides of the belt, you're going to have two lines going up each side of the belt. You know, if you can get some design in there, that's fine, but what you're looking for is the more stitching you get. If you get a 2.5 inch belt, say in web gear, say a rigger's belt, they'll often put even 5 or 6 lines of stitching on there because that stiffens it. You want a stiffer belt. As a gun belt, as a tactical belt, as something that you're going to rely on over time. Typically, a gun belt that you're going to wear with jeans, trousers, dress pants, whatever, is probably going to be a 1.5 inch belt. That's a standard. Most of the time, unless stated otherwise, any slots that you're going to see in holsters, they're made for a 1.5 inch belt. If you want something different, I have guys that have asked for loops on the holsters that fit a 1 inch belt because that's their church rig, right? They have a 1 inch belt that they wear to church. They have a 1.5 inch belt that they wear the rest of the time. So they want that to still fit snug so I can adjust loops, straps, or whatever to fit that. So, but you want to look for a belt that's going to hold everything in place. It's going to keep it where you want it to be, okay? Then as we get on to the holsters, there's any number of different holsters, styles that you can get, particularly in leather. As Kydex has become more popular on the market, more people are making Kydex. Again, that's great if that fits your purpose, if that's what you want for your carry option. But there are different styles that you can get inside the waistband, outside the waistband. How does it attach to your belt? How does it sit when you are wearing it? What's the rake or the angle that that belt sits? Some people want a straight drop on a gun because that's where they're comfortable. Some people put an extreme rake on the gun because they wear it a little further back, and that's the way that their hand comes out. A couple of different styles that you're going to find. As far as outside the waistband, I have my most popular style that people have asked for is what I call sloop, because that's this one right here. This is the holster that I've worn probably 80% of the time for the last 1.5 years, 2 years. I call it a sloop because there is a slot and there's a loop. And so I put those together. And if you look at this through here, you can see where the belt comes right straight through there, and that fits right in there. And you can see right where that belt fits through there. And what that does with this this holster is that fits my 21, my Glock 21, that goes in there. And what that does is the loop holds it tight to my body, and this slot pulls it back around into my side and actually holds that that grip, that stock, really snug into the side, and holds that where I want it. It's always in the same place. When I do that, I put a belt loop between these two, so it's never going to move more than an inch or so. And then with my belt not moving, it's going to be where I expect it to be each time I go to look for it. So that is the sloop. That's a common outside the waistband carry. As we get into some of the others, one of the things you need to look for when you're picking a holster, whether it's leather or Kydex, leather in particular, a couple design considerations you want to look for. One of them, and the first one, is that when you pick a holster, you want to be able to get a full grip on the gun. This is a holster style that I call a scabbard, because it reminds me of the old rifle scabbards that you would have on a horseback. Basically, it's just a straight pocket. This one has no rake to it. This would sit straight up and down as you wore it. I wear this probably 10 to 20% of the time when I'm not particularly carrying concealed. This is when I'm working in a dress down mode. People that expect me to be carrying, I carry with a badge as well. So it's not really a concealment holster. It'd be a great range holster, but it is not a tactical concealed holster. But it's a great holster. I like it. It's very comfortable. Fits the gun very well. Another consideration, which I found with a smaller holster that I had adapted some years ago, is that when you get over to the mag release on the gun, you don't want to cover that mag release, because you will bump the leather invariably, and you'll be releasing the magazine just by wearing the gun on the side of your hip. And once you start reaching for the gun, especially, and your thumb comes anywhere near that mag release, you're going to be popping your magazine out. And at best, you have a single shot pistol at that point. You no longer have a semi-auto. But so that's one of the design considerations, a couple of design considerations you want to look for. The holster should be comfortable. You should always have a comfortable design, something you're going to carry all day, every day. You're not going to dread wearing it. One of my first things that I had said with a friend when we were talking about that was people are going to find out what a pain it is sometimes to carry every day. Something you got to commit yourself to, and part of that is the equipment that you choose. If you choose equipment that's uncomfortable, you're not going to wear it every day, and you're not going to have your gun when you wish you had your gun. As far as some of the other designs, this is a design I made for a friend at work that wanted the option to be able to carry handcuffs with the gun. This is one of the designs I came up with. I make mag pouches, I make handcuff pouches, but this was kind of a scaled down version, a more informal version. Again, in a setting where people expect them to be on duty, people expect them to be an officer. The handcuffs don't really set off, but I put a one-way snap loop on here so that it only snaps on from the bottom. It won't snap off. If you pull on the cuffs, that snap won't come off. If you hit it from the top, they'll come right out. Okay, but you got to intentionally do that. Again, basically it's the same design as this loop, but when you have, particularly in leather gear, you'll have guys that are able to make what you want made. Anything that you can come up with, if it's feasible, if it's possible, good leather crafter will be able to come up with those designs for you and make what you want to make. So that's another outside the waistband. The only real inside the waistband, I have really two designs for those. This is what I call the prudent inside the waistband, or prudent IWB. This goes over. Again, the newer models have the same one-way snap that this one has screws, but you can get those with snaps. Again, one-way snaps that will only come off if you pull from the top. That way the belt's not pulling the snaps off and disengaging your holster, so you have just a holster floating around and falling out. But this goes inside the waistband. and over the belt, holds that securely. The guy that's had this has had this for some time now, wears it on a regular basis, and it's very comfortable. On the outside, you'll notice the detailing on almost all of these holsters. They're pretty detailed on the outside. That's as much aesthetics as anything else. On the back side, pretty smooth. This is the part up against the body. Another thing you're going to look for in particularly a leather holster, and really Kydex as well, is what we call a sweat guard. That's this part that comes up around here that protects the gun and you from each other. Protects the gun from your sweat, protects you from the sharp edges of a gun, especially something like a Glock. This one doesn't have that, but most of these others have these sweat guards that cover most, if not all, of the top of that gun. So that when you're wearing that, you have something fairly smooth pushing up against you. I still always wear a shirt between me and the holster. Just a matter of comfort and function. One of the things in making leather holsters in particular is the molding process. We use veg tan leather, it's cowhide. One thing about vegetable tan leather is that it is very malleable. When you get it wet, it will take on a shape, you can mold it. When it dries, it's going to hold that shape. It gets almost hard, almost woody when it dries out after you've molded it. And then I oil them. Most of these are in an oil finish. All these that are this russet tan look, those are just an oil finish. It's the veg tan leather that's been molded, wet molded, and then dried, and then re-oiled, and then it holds that shape when it goes through. When they come out, for instance, this one was a, I finished it, I didn't like it, I remade it. I never put any finish on this, so it comes out real tan. So you see the difference. That's basically the same leather, just one has been finished. And then I put a Resolene top coat on that, which is very durable, gives it a nice soft shine, and protects the leather, makes it somewhat waterproof when you go through that.
What about different colors and stitching?
Yeah, you can get the stitching. I do. If people don't specify or they leave it up to me, I really love the russet finish with the white stitching. I think that white stitching just pops out. This is one that I've sent to a couple different raffles in that. They always do really well in bringing in interest from people that are at fundraisers. What I do is I offer them, I put this out, let them play with it, and then say, I'll make whatever you want. And I've probably done 6 or 7 of those here in the past year, different functions. I like the russet with the white stitching. I can also do, this is what's called a chocolate finish. I do it with white stitching. The bonded nylon stitching will repel the oil pretty well, so that stays a nice white finish. This, however, with the dyed finish, I have about 3 different colors I work with. I can make other colors if anybody wants. Anybody can make other colors, mix and match. Most of them come out fairly dark, unless you're getting into like a red or a blue or really, colorful dyes. But most of the darker browns, they generally turn out fairly dark. If you don't want to go that dark, you can go with just oil. But this is a chocolate finish. This dyes the stitching as well. And the way that the holster is constructed, you're really not going to be able to stitch it after you dye it, for the most part. In some cases you could. I generally don't go that far. You can see the same stitching, it's the same color on the back. That's nice and white. This kind of has what I call an antique finish. You can see the stitching, it still pops out, but it's not as bright white as it is with just the oil finish.
With it being leather, is there any maintenance or upkeep that you have to do to condition it after you?
Fairly minimal. Now, if you do get a scratch on it, for instance, this one that I've worn for a couple years, the oil that I use is called neat's foot oil. And if you scratch it, you could take neat's foot oil, put that back on, you're going to get basically the same finish that you had originally. Neat squid oil you can get almost anywhere. Any kind of tack shops, it's a leather oil. Any horse tack shops, any leather shops, Walmart sells this stuff. You can get neat squid oil, it's not expensive, and it's pretty common leather conditioning oil.
What kind of turnaround time if somebody was to order one?
It depends on how busy I am. Generally, I can get a holster from when you tell me you want it. About 2 weeks, I can get you a holster. That's really fast on the industry, but I'm not doing the volume that a lot of other guys are. I generally have 2 or 3 or 4 going at a time. You might have some one-horse operations, single guy that does great work, has a lot of demand. He might have 100 going at a time. You imagine one guy alone in his shop making 100 holsters at a time. It's going to take some time to do that. If you look online, generally they'll tell you how long the turnaround time is, or they're not taking orders right now. One of them that I went on recently, they tell you right on the website, 26-week turnaround. That's 6 months. Figure on 6 months. There's another guy out west that's been doing it for a year, a guy named Thad Ribka. He doesn't have email, he doesn't answer the phone, he doesn't have a website. You write him a letter, and you put a self-addressed stamped envelope in with it, you tell him what you want. He writes you back, tells you what he's going to make. Then you write a check, you put it in an envelope, you send it to him, and you wait 9 months to get a holster. But people value it. That's something that they want. He makes great holsters. They're all handmade. They're hand-stitched. Does fantastic work, but you're going to pay a lot of money. You're going to wait a long time for it, and that's worth it to a lot of people. One of the things that comes out with leather holsters is the expense. They become expensive. The material is not cheap. But it's not uncommon for people to buy an everyday carry holster and spend a couple $100 or more on a holster. And people ask, why is that so expensive? Well, part of it is that the process to make a holster for your gun in the style that you want, for your gun to carry every day, can be kind of lengthy. When you go to buy a holster, leather or Kydex, figure out what you want to do with it, how you want it to fit. And at least if you get one from me, if you don't like how it fits or you don't like how it carries, tell me. I tell you, I'm going to make it till you like it.
How would people get in contact with you, Mark?
I don't have a website that you can order from. Right now I'm on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/Work-A-Day Leather, you can get to my page there. I got a lot of photos and you can see a lot of the work I do. Whether it's everyday carry stuff, I do some Western stuff and I'm doing more of that. One of the first jobs I got, I was fortunate enough to have a guy that was really understanding and didn't want just a museum piece. He wanted a piece that he was going to take his Colt Peacemaker out with and play around with and do some cowboy shooting, and he loved it. I put in cartridge loops, all kinds of stuff. So you can see some of that stuff in there, and you'll actually see a progression over the last couple of years where you really start to figure it out. You really start to get better at things. Whatever your craft is, you know, if you're a cabinet maker, you're getting better all the time. If you're a brain surgeon, I hope you're getting better all the time. If you're a holster maker, getting better all the time, and you'll see a progression. And I'm getting to where I'm really happy with the stuff that I'm making and the way things are turning out. So, facebook.com/Work-A-Day Leather, or you can catch me on email at workadaycg@gmail.com. That's as in Work-A-Day Custom Gunleather, but it's workadaycg, no spaces, no dashes, no underlines. workadaycg@gmail.com. Tell me what you want. Tell me to get in contact with you. And if you want me to make you a holster, I'll be more than happy to make you a holster. I love doing it and have a lot of fun with it.